with the #1 overall pick, I'm going Shedeur Sanders. Prime time, coming over here to Tennessee, Music City, and he's going to be singing all night because this team clearly needs a quarterback. Brian Callahan, first-year head coach, did not feel comfortable with Will Levis at the command, with the keys, the ignition. He was clearly handing it over to Mason Rudolph for the good chunk of the season. He's going to go out and try to get the quarterback that he wants. And of the two, him and Shedeur Sanders, or Ward and Sanders, I think he would prefer Sanders. Maybe I'm wrong on that. However, I just think with what Sanders brings, with his timing, with his more like pocket passing ability, I think that is something that Brian Callahan would look for in his offense. And Shedeur Sanders has all those traits as a heavy passing offense that Tennessee might want to be trying to get to. Shedeur can do that. So I'm taking the quarterback here. Once again, really, really tough where these quarterbacks go. Tennessee, if they don't get a quarterback in free agency, they're going to be very much in the market to get a quarterback, one of these, that #1 overall pick. I'm going to go get a weapon here with the second round selection, Matthew Golden. A golden answer ticket there with Calvin Ridley on the outside or in the slot. He'd probably be, because Nick Westbrook-Ikhine also gives you versatility on the inside and the outside. Same thing with Ridley. All three of those guys would be your rotation of wide receivers as long as you bring back Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. But Golden, a really good route runner. He creates separation and somebody that is a little undersized. However, I really like his ability to create space for himself and hang on there and make tough plays. And on day 3, we got a couple of linemen, Jordan Burch and Brendan Crenshaw Dixon. And these guys are going to help them out in their trenches because that's something that this team still needs to address on both sides. Edge rushing wise, Arden Key and Harold Landry both going to last year of their contracts. They need more pass rush. Burch gives you inside-out versatility, but I think he is definitely the most dangerous off the edge. He could even drop a few pounds. He's a really good athlete where if he did drop like 10, 15 pounds, he could be a full-time edge rusher, no problem. I just felt like he was the best available. Maybe they do need more of a true edge rusher. However, I do think Burch can certainly be a true edge rusher for this team. And definitely with what he was available, I can't pass up on a guy like that. As strong as he is and as big as he was for the Ducks, I'm a Ducks fan. That guy was consistently getting after the quarterback. Oregon's got some good defensive linemen to watch out for next year, too, with Mateo Uyunglele. And then their final pick, Brendan Crenshaw Dixon from Florida, the big right tackle over there. He's strong. He's powerful, man. He's got some vice grips when he just locks you down and just anchors. He's going to be that right tackle, hopefully, of the future. They need an upgrade at Nicholas Petit-Frere at that right tackle position. They're going to have to address that in free agency, too. But maybe they only bring in like a veteran 1-year type deal, and then you get somebody to draft and develop. On to the Cleveland Browns, and I'm also going quarterback. So we experimented yesterday with trading down 1 and 2 for other teams, quarterback or whatever. This time, we're going quarterback 1-2. They're both off the board. Cam Ward here for the Cleveland Browns. Kevin Stefanski's like, enough is enough. I'm going to go get the quarterback, Cam Ward, from Miami, the Hurricane, because that is desperately an area that they have to go after, especially Deshaun Watson re-tearing his Achilles. He's done. I don't think he's going to be playing another snap in Cleveland, and they clearly don't have another quarterback behind him, DTR. Jameis Winston, maybe bring him back on the cheap. However, they seriously need to address this issue. I'm going to go get a weapon in Colston Loveland. I am a huge fan of David Njoku, great tight end. But he's going to be going to a contract year, a little banged up this season. Maybe try to find that heir apparent. Loveland certainly could do that. Atkins was a nice number 2. He's a free agent, though. You got Charles Grant, left tackle at William Mary. He's a really good developmental option. Now, once again, they would have to go out and sign somebody to like a 1-year deal at that left tackle position if they did not feel comfortable with DeJuan Jones. But remember, Grant could also play left guard for this team. And some people view him as a guard/tackle. It just depends. And I just felt like, hey, let's go after a guy that either could be tackle or guard. Let's just be honest. That's kind of where I'm at. So I'm going to be real with you. I wasn't sure. DeJuan Jones, at this point, I'm still a little, is he the franchise left tackle? Is he not? And that's why I went after Charles Grant. Because if nothing else, Grant could be that left guard of the future. Joel Bitonio getting a little bit older now and even contemplating retirement. So at least finding some sort of developmental offensive lineman is critical because their offensive line took a big step back. And with their final 2 picks, I got a couple of Kansas players, man. Some good Kansas players. Kansas got some good football players. And Mello Dotson and Devin Neal, running back and corner, helped them out in the secondary because their secondary this season took a major step back. So I think Mello Dotson got some really nice, solid, long arms, and he's not an elite athlete or anything like that, but he really makes plays and somebody that has had a really good season. So it gives you some more depth behind Martin Emerson, if nothing else. Plus, he is a free agent after this season. And also, so is Greg Newsome. Now, you do have Cameron Mitchell, but I do think that they still need some secondary depth. And then Devin Neal, hopefully to be the future running back. Tough shoes to fill if Nick Chubb isn't back. And even if he is, they could still use more help in that running back room. And then on to the New York Football Giants. I'm taking Travis Hunter, both quarterbacks, off the board. So I just felt like, let's go get the most explosive athlete out here on both sides of the football. He's going to help us out in that secondary and also at the receiver position. And him and Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, you're just got yourself an elite tandem wide receiver duo, and you're getting yourself a stud corner as well. Jackson Dart, quarterback. We're taking him here at the top of the second round. We shall see how he does at the Senior Bowl, but with that stellar performance there, I'm forgetting which bowl game it was, but anyway, it was versus the Duke defense, and he shredded them up, and that's a solid defense as well. They got some players there. Jackson Dart, he's had his moments, especially during the clutch situations. I feel like he falls under pressure at times, but I think he's got all the talent. I know he has all the talent. The arm talent is there with Jackson Dart. And if you could develop him, Brian Dable, get him into the offense, coach out some of those bad decisions, Dart could be the franchise quarterback. Then we go Tate Ratledge here on later day 2. And he's going to be that plug-and-play right guard for them. I think that they're going to need to think about that right guard position of the future. So let's go ahead and address that position. Ratledge is a plug-and-play type of guy. He's a mauler. He's a brute. He's a tough nose. You know what? So we're going to get him in there at that right guard position. Jordan Phillips. Oh, this guy's an athlete, man. Unbelievable. He's on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list at the beginning of the season. And he's somebody to watch out for severely severely. I'm talking big time at the Senior Bowl, because this dude, he's just very raw. I think he doesn't know how to really use his hands just yet, but he certainly has the athletic traits you look for. He plays nose tackle a lot at Maryland. He kind of splits his snaps between nose and, 3 tech and whatnot. Like, he can move around. He's just so athletic, and he's so strong and powerful. So if he can kind of put those things together next to Sexy Dexy, you could have yourself a 1-2 formidable punch. And then finally, Smile Mondon, linebacker from Georgia, going to give them some more athleticism and some smiling faces in that linebacking room. Micah McFadden's a good player, but Bobby Okereke going into the last year of his contract. So I think it makes sense to try to upgrade the linebacking room with Smile Mondon Jr. All right, New England, you got it. Abdul Carter. I can't pass up on Abdul Carter. I know offense is big need for them. They need a tackle. They need a wide receiver. I just can't pass up on Abdul Carter. Such a dynamic player off the edge. He's one of the best players in this draft. So they go ahead and snag him here. They do need edge too. I mean, they need another guy besides Keon White off the edge. So I'm going to go snag him. And then we go into Cameron Williams. I'm going to get a tackle. Now, Cameron Williams, really raw. He did struggle too. And, throughout the season had his moments. However, he is a very raw, traitsy prospect with a lot of upside. You're talking about the guy with his size, 6'5", 335, long arms. He's got the punching power. It's just he's got to get better with his hand placement, get better with his balance too, was struggling a little bit more at the end of the season. And if he can really hone his technique, he can be a dominant right tackle. And you put Michael Onwenu over at right guard. You fill out somebody in free agency at that left tackle position. Cole Strange comes back to play center or guard. And you can kind of maybe add one more player or two into the fold between some of those young, talented guys, Robinson, City Sow, etc., and maybe a free agent. Demetrius Knight Jr., the South Carolina linebacker. You're probably hearing his name quite a bit. I have watched a lot of South Carolina games this season, and he's somebody that has popped off on film for me. Now, I need to go through and watch the film on him. He's like a bigger dude. He seems like a Mike, and that's why I'm thinking for the New England Patriots, he could be like a Jawan Bentley type of replacement. Jelani Tavai, I think, is going to be a free agent after this next season as well. So both of those guys going to be free agents in 2026. So you find yourself a developmental linebacker on day 2 with some traits. And then we go Dylan Sampson, Tennessee running back. Why not add the electricity next to the boom, right? That's the way I look at this. So you go into next year, if you improve your offensive lines, Ramondre Stevenson should have better ways to run. And then Dylan Sampson is your speed, receiving element that teams have to watch out for. Finally, Simeon Burrow Jr., Miami interior defensive lineman. He's got some good athleticism. And he's also another guy that's actually strong at the point of attack, does a really good job with his leverage as well. So he can hang really anywhere on that defensive interior. Now he's going to have to get bigger. He's going to have to get stronger, but I really do like him as some more depth on the interior of the defensive line, because that's another thing that they have to look at. Denetric Wise, a free agent. Daniel Ekiel is a free agent. A lot of those guys, except for Christian Barmore, are free agents. So, I mean, Gotchik's going on the last year of his contract, I believe. All areas that they need to look at. On to the Jaguars here. And with their pick, I'm going Will Johnson. I know you've probably seen this one so many times. Get ready to see it so much more until April. Anyway, self-explanatory. Go help out that secondary. You got Armin Embu, Missouri, offensive tackle there. Now, I see him as more of an interior guy. Some people say keep him at tackle, and I'm okay with that too. He certainly has the arm length to do that. I think he has the movement skills as well. I just worry about him sticking him at right tackle day one. I think there's going to be some question marks. And while he may not have had the pressure numbers that you say, oh, wow, he was really, really good, I do think he got some chip help, so I do want to be real with that. He's a good player, though, and I think he's got a lot of potential. Needs to work on his lunging a little bit. I think he does have a little bit of balance, at times concerns. I love his slick feet, though, and he certainly has a tremendous amount of power profile to move guys in the run game. You saw it all day with Dylan Stewart and what he was able to do in that South Carolina game, how he was just moving guys off the ball. So I really do like Membu. I would just personally try to stick him at right guard, and I feel good about that with a Brandon Sheriff type of replacement here for the Jags. Then we go TJ Sanders, keeping it over in the SEC with South Carolina interior defensive lineman, really athletic stud, going to help build some more fortified trenches. I think he'd be a great complement with Mason Smith on that defensive interior as your pass rusher. Brandon Switson, LSU. Well, they go back to LSU and go grab another cat, man. They got somebody else, Jordan Johnson there too, or Jordan Jefferson, pardon me, on that interior as well as Mason Smith. So you're just kind of continuing to build up that depth. And actually, Jefferson can even look better than Smith this season. But between Sanders, Jefferson, and Smith, like I think that's a crazy duo. And then you had Brandon Switson, who another guy to watch out for. I don't think he has the bend or the crazy athletic burst, but he is strong. He can just lift up dudes, man, and he can plow through you. He certainly is going to be a nice third edge rusher behind Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. And then we go on to Jalen Milroe, a nice developmental slot. If you do end up having to let go of Christian Kirk either this season or next, Milroe has some crazy speed and some ability there and some route running nuance in the slot. Final pick, Dylan Gabriel. Hey, Mac Jones a free agent, so why not get a developmental backup? That's all it is, though, just in case injuries for Trevor Lawrence. Oh, I'm gambling today. I'm gambling on whether or not people are going to rat me out in the comments section. Jalen Milroe, are you crazy? I love Jalen Milroe. I still do. I understand as a passer, he is so raw. And whether or not he'll ever really develop as a true pocket passer, I doubt it. However, those traits, that athleticism, the arm talent, I'm banking on that, man. If nothing else, you can build an elite ground game with that. We pick out Quinshon Judkins, too, later in the draft to be that rock, be that bouncing off tackle machine as that running. They need another running back, clearly, in that room. They've gone through a lot of guys between McCormick, of course, and Alexander Madison getting some injuries early in the season, too, and Zeus White. So they need a running back. But Milroe, Judkins, and then we got Teteroa McMillan. We didn't even talk about our first-round pick. I was so distracted. But Teteroa Air McMillan, as I call him, T-Mac, whatever, going to be that number one outside receiver. I mean, Jacoby Myers had a great season. You got Super Bowers. That is your tandem right there. Trey Tucker is a deep threat. You got really everything you need in that offense now for a quarterback to succeed, whether it's Milroe. Hopefully it's Milroe. And look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I think it's worth a shot, though, here. David Sidigabenosin, they clearly need another cornerback. Jack Jones has been fine and whatnot. Jakarian Bennett's actually, he had a pretty solid season, so I'm going to definitely give him a shot. But I do think they still need to up that secondary, and even if they bring back Jack Jones, then Nate Hobbs a free agent, and so there's a lot of question marks in their secondary, and it was clearly a problem for them at the season. And Igabenosin's going to give him some physical presence for sure. Last pick, Denny Stutzman, linebacker from Oklahoma. And Spillane's a free agent, and so is Divine Diablo. You got Tommy Eichenberg, the iceberg, but I do think they need to add to the linebacking room with a stud, and Stutzman hopefully can give him that as a tough-nosed run defender. Needs to get better coverage, but he's a really good run defender. On to the Jets, and we are going Mason Graham. I do not know if Aaron Glenn is the head coach. I checked earlier, but at the time of recording this, I do not know. I'm hoping we can get Aaron Glenn. Detroit Lions, come on. Plus, it'd be a win-win. We give you comp picks as well. So I know you lose a tough coach, a really good coach. I really like Aaron Glenn. And it'd be cool to see him back in New York where he really got all things started. Now, going to the draft, though, we're adding some defensive studs. If it is Aaron Glenn as the coach, Mason Graham on that interior, just a blue chip type of player. I don't know if he's going to ever be like a top 5 interior defensive lineman in the NFL, but I'm telling you right now, he's going to be a really, really good football player. And when you got a big a big Q over there, I almost call him Big Quinn Williams. We've had him before. Unfortunately, we let him go. But now you go get Mason Graham next to Quinn Williams. You got yourself a great, great interior defensive line. Kevin Winston Jr., the Penn State safety, he's got that range. He's got the size. He can be that roaming free safety that we do not have right now. So we need a playmaker in that back end, somebody that's a sure tackler as well. Terrence Ferguson, we're going to get from Oregon, the tight end, pardon me. And we also could use a tackle too, but I'm going to go Terrence Ferguson here, the tight end from Oregon, really reliable weapon. And he has just got tremendous size as well. And he's a solid athlete for his size. He's not an elite athlete, but I think he's a very good athlete. He's a smooth mover and certainly going to be a really solid tight end for this Jets team, at least to add competition with Jeremy Rutger. Final pick for the Jets, we went Dylan Fairchild, one of my guys, right? I think that Fairchild is going to be a really nice developmental left guard behind Simpson. And then also, hey, Elijah Vera-Tucker going to a contract year, so maybe they don't re-sign him with the injuries he had. It's going to be a big year for AVT. Just staying healthy is going to be important. He's a very good football player, but that is something to look at. And John Simpson's been really good too, but once again, he's going to a contract year. Maybe they only pay one of them. Carolina Panthers, and with their first pick, I'm going James Pierce Jr. I love Mike Green. I really did think about doing it again. I want to shake it up, right? Just so you can say I did something a little bit different. I don't know. I'm sorry, but both are really good players, and I go back and forth between the two. Pierce, a lot of talent. He's got a little bit more, I think, traits in terms of size and length. I don't think he's as polished as Mike Green is just yet, especially as a run defender. But Pierce, very, very good pass rusher and going to help out this Carolina Panthers team, which clearly needs another pass rusher. Andrew Makuba, great safety prospect. I think he is a super rangy, super explosive, twitched up guy that's going to be able to make plays in the back end and just going to add some more ability to make plays, like something that they don't have in that secondary right now. So I want to get an interception ball hawk. And then you got Jalen Royals, Utah State wide receiver. He's a explosive wide receiver. He's got that explosive burst. Now, I don't know if his long speed is crazy, but I like his explosive burst. He can create separation for himself. I do want to see him at the Senior Bowl before I feel good about him on round 2, and that's why I'm more of a round 3 guy at the moment. I do want to see his route running, a lot of simplified routes, a lot of curls and stuff like that on his tape. Get the ball in his hands and screens at Utah State. They schemed him a ball a ton for good reason because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. He kind of looks like a little bit of a smaller Jamar Chase out there. And he has similar play style, actually, to him as well. I mean, I don't think he's as good as Jamar Chase, or I'm not comparing him to that, but a little bit of reminiscence there. And you got big wide receivers on the outside. Let's go get a more of a shifty guy there with Royals. And then you got Denzel Burke and Emory Jones Jr. Burke going to add some more secondary help on the outside. They certainly need it. And then finally, Emory Jones going to be a developmental right tackle. And just looking at it, because maybe I do think that Taylor Moton gets an extension. Just in case, though, he does not, you get your developmental right tackle for a season. And they could even put him at guard possibly, too. I know their guard situation's locked down, too, at the moment. But I do want to add at least a little bit more offensive line protection for at least swing capabilities. On to the New Orleans Saints at home of the Super Bowl this year. I'm starting things off with Mike Green, the machine from Marshall. I am such a fan of Mike Green that I put him top 10, and I feel great. I feel really good about it. I'll be real, I do. I feel good about it. Mike Green is a playmaking machine as an edge rusher. He's a menace there for Marshall. And against the best competition that he played, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, he held his own, and not just held his own, he looked good. He stood out. He is a guy that's got a plethora of pass rush moves. He's got a really dangerous spin move, and he has good play strength in the run game despite his size. So, it's not going to be a huge strength when he goes in the NFL. However, he can hold his own. He's got good leg drive as well. We got Donovan Jackson at left guard, plug and play right there. Really solid left guard. I think he's got a high floor. He doesn't have, I don't think that he's, for me, he does stop his feet still one too many times, and that can be a problem for him in pass protection. He's just so strong, though. That's the thing. Going through this guy, you have to be twitchy. You have to be able to get around him. And when you're on the interior, you can get away with that. I don't think he's a tackle. I think he's an interior guy, and he's a really good run blocker, too. And New Orleans clearly needs some more help on that interior, just the offensive line in general. Alfred Collins going to be that run defender on the interior. Just put him up at that nose. Let Brian Brzee be the 3-tech. That's a good 1-2 punch compliments. Collins he's a rock in the middle. Jake Brenningstool, tight end, Clemson. I figure Foster Moreau going into a contract year, free agent. Juwan Johnson, free agent this year. You got Taysom Hill going to be going to a contract year in 2026. Even though I love Taysom Hill, they could use another tight end in the room to at least develop. Jake Brenningstool has great size, really good linear athleticism and explosiveness. Somebody that's going to be a nice big catching target for whoever's quarterbacking into this team for the long haul. Dante Trader Jr., he's a missile coming downhill as a safety. I think he'll be a nice addition for this room that I think needs some more influx of youth. You got Jordan Howden, but at this point, Tyrann Mathieu is getting a little bit older, and I feel like he had a bit of a down year this season, so I do think it's time to at least add some competition into the room. Final pick for them, Ollie Gordon, the second. I'm going to add that 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara as the power element in the room. I would also see them possibly looking like a Woody Marks, too. He was on the board at this point, so he would be somebody I'd look at as well, just depending on what they want. And I just like Ollie Gordon here and his value. I think he's a really, really solid running back still, even though he had a down year. On to Chicago. I'm going Will Campbell, offensive lineman. Whether you play him at tackle or guard, you get those competitions worked out. They just need to address the offensive line. Like, that's what it is. Will Campbell. I'm telling you right now, I will be shocked if this guy is not a solid starter in the NFL. He may not be an elite tackle or guard in the NFL, but I do think he'll be a very good player. And then Nick Gordon, BPA at this point, he just kind of slipped on the board, and I'm like, hey, we'll swoop him on up here. Now, I don't see this guy as like a 10-sack dude in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a very productive player and a very solid NFL guy, just like Will Campbell. And you pair him along with Montez Sweat and Austin Booker, that's a really complimentary pairing of three there. Omarion Hampton, North Carolina, running back. Let's go ahead and, Ben Johnson, let's go get that 1-2 punch with DeAndre Swift. You got your Swifty element. Now you go get your nice running back between the tackles and Omarion Hampton. And also has receiving elements too. And he's no slouch by any means in terms of speed. Just not the most shifty and evasive guy, I guess. Deone Walker here, interior defensive lineman, another BPA player on the board. He's a big guy. He needs to, I think there are times where you throw out that L word and you're like, okay, what are you doing, Deone Walker? I want to see you get a little more effort into it. But he also is playing like 60 plus snaps a game for a guy that's 6'6", 350 pounds. You don't expect a guy like that to play that many snaps. So I can understand that. I want to see him get better in terms of his leverage. That's his biggest thing. He just stands up over and over and he gets pushed back one too many times. So those are going to have to be coached out of him. He can develop for a season behind Billings. And to the 49ers here at their first pick, I'm going to go Josh Connolly. I am a really big fan of Connolly. He's one of my favorite tackles in this class. He is my tackle one. I think his movement skills are just excellent. They really are. And I think he's got really solid hand punch and power despite that size. Like, he can hold his own in the run game too. You get this guy on the move, and that is really where you see him at his best as well. Like, he opened so many lanes for Dylan Gabriel. I saw him get a couple of big runs behind Josh Connolly Jr. and the run game, Jordan James. Josh Connolly Jr. is a big element to that offensive line. That offensive line at Oregon was so good this season, and there are a lot of good football players. Connolly is one of those guys, and for the 49ers, they clearly need to add some more offensive tackle depth, if nothing else. However, Jalen Moore has been a solid swing tackle, and he could be the left tackle of the future, but Connolly can be that right tackle of the future or left tackle of the future, no matter what. Like, they need help at that right tackle position. Colton McKivitz also maybe move him back inside. That's a possibility as well. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. I thought at this point, this is where the value makes sense with Shamar Stewart. Can be a nice developmental edge rusher for this team. He could even be a developmental interior player too, possibly, depending on what they want to do. But since I drafted Omar Norman-Lott, we'll just say he's a developmental edge rusher. All right, we'll go with that. How about that? All right, I know 49ers fans like, oh, what are you doing here? I don't know. But anyway, both really, Shamar Stewart, Omar Norman-Lott, both really good athletes. Stewart's an elite athlete. He just needs to put together some pass rush moves. Like, he just runs down the straight, down their chests, and he doesn't know how to get off blocks, really. Omar Norman-Lott knows how to get off, and he knows how to get after the passer. I'll tell you that right now. He's one of the more twitched up interior defensive linemen. He's just not really that strong at the point of attack. Shamar Stewart's really strong at the point of attack. It's kind of the double-edged sword here. Anyway, certainly some guys, Norman-Lott, just got to get stronger, more consistent with double teams and hanging in there. Not that he needs to do that a whole ton. And then you got Darian Porter, the Iowa State cornerback, really long, really athletic. I do think there's some transitional tightness with him, but I definitely see the explosiveness that he can play from off coverage too and come downhill and definitely break up passes. And I feel like if they have to let go of Travarius Ward, and if he wants to move on, and I respect that, then they might want to look for another guy with some size on the outside. You got Clay Webb. I list him as an interior guy, but I think he may end up moving into center, and you figure Jake Brendel going into last year of his contract, then you could start at least thinking about getting a developmental center. And Clay Webb, we'll see him at the Senior Bowl. I can't wait to see him. Jacksonville State, really do like him a lot. His movement skills are excellent, and he's another one of these wrestlers and wrestling backgrounds. I love it. Elijah Arroyo from Miami, a tight end, to be a nice developmental piece and give them some depth. Their depth behind George Kittle after this season, they don't have any. So getting Arroyo with his athletic ability can be a good developmental understudy for Kittle going to last year of his contract. They'll probably give him an extension. Anyway, they still need to look at it. About them Cowboys here at number 12, I'm going Ashton Jeanty. Are you shocked? Oh, are you entertained? I know, I'm sorry. It's one of those, just like with the Jaguars, you're going to see them, or in the Colts with Tyler Warren, Jaguars, Will Johnson. There's certain guys, it just makes so much sense. So I don't need to explain too much with that. I know. But I do get a Xavier Restrepo here in the second round. Going to be a good slot option, even though CeeDee Lamb plays inside, outside. I think Restrepo is just the best player available in terms of the receiving, at that point, the receiving position. And Restrepo, very reliable. He's a solid route runner. He's got that explosiveness in and out of his breaks that matters so much at the receiver position. And not to mention, he don't drop passes. He just catches everything. So he could be like a Cole Beasley plus on this offense. And then finally, Lathan Ransom, a nice solid safety in that back end, and somebody that can be a reliable piece for them with the safeties that they have right now. He can help. I mean, I'm not saying he's the most rangy guy. So if you're looking for a Malik Hooker, which is probably what they're going to be looking at, he can definitely fill that role. And he is a reliable player with his coverage ability too. So I think he can fill a multitude of roles in that safety room. And then you got young talent with Marquise Bell and also Azareye'h Thomas. And we'll see one of those guys, I'm sure, step up. I just want to add a little more depth because those guys can also be matchup pieces. Here for the Miami Dolphins, I'm going with Josh Simmons. It's best offensive lineman available. That's it. That's all you need to do, Miami. You're taking best offensive lineman available. I'm cool if they double dip at some point in this draft, but maybe they get somebody in free agency too. I will say money will be tight for them. But Josh Simmons, whether he's left tackle, whether he's right tackle, whether he's left guard, I don't care. You're just get him on that offensive line and figure this thing out. Wasn't the super high component of Patrick Paul. He has talent. He's super big, man. He's got super long. I mean that in good ways. He's got, tremendous size, tremendous arm length. Dang near 36-inch arms. And you see that. I just think his hand usage is so raw. We'll see how he comes along into year number 2. I just want to add at least some competition there just in case. Now, Teron Armstead, we'll see if he comes back and whatnot. But Simmons has right tackle ability, his left tackle ability. He's another one of those guys. He's got the power profile. I'd be okay sticking him at guard too. I don't say you do that often, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. Simmons, just get good offensive lineman in Miami. On to Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State cornerback. They need to add some more depth into the secondary. They really have struggled hitting at the cornerback position too. And that's one of the reasons why they traded for Jalen Ramsey. And then they picked up Kendall Fuller in free agency as well. They traded for Jalen Ramsey, and then they picked up Fuller in free agency. But I feel like that Azareye'h Thomas could be that number 3 guy on the outside. Kader Ho, you can bring him back relatively cheap. I believe he's he might be a UDF. I'm pretty sure he's restricted. So you bring him back in the slot. Azareye'h Thomas will be that third corner if you have injuries, which especially with Fuller and also Rams getting a little bit older, I think it makes a lot of sense to get somebody at least in there, some depth early on, and then that long-term outside corner. And we're not done in the second year. I want to get Billy Bowman Jr. with Javon Holland being a free agent. We'll see. I've heard different reports on that. No matter what, they need to add safety because Jordan Poor is a free agent as well. Quinn Ewers, let's go and get a nice backup here behind Tua Tagovailoa. You need to have a good backup. I think Quinn Ewers can be an excellent backup in the NFL. And who knows, if he ends up looking really good, if Tua does get injured, then you could trade him for a second round, maybe in a first round pick, depending on how good he looks. And then Orlando Gadsden, Syracuse tight end. Keep him. Hey, got to keep the bloodlines there with his dad. I think it's a perfect addition for this Miami Dolphin team. Getting somebody in here with some immense talent as a pass catcher to be a developmental piece behind John Smith and finishing up there for their draft. But Colton, I'm going Tyler Warren. No, I didn't go Tyler Warren again. Look, I'm trying to shake things up. And I really like Benjamin Morrison. I'll say this right now. If Benjamin Morrison's there, I would take him. Chris Ballard. I know he may not be exactly the type of guy. He may not be a freak athlete or have freakish arms or anything like that, but I think Morrison is one of the best cover men that you're going to find in any draft class. We'll see if he does declare. I've not heard anything just yet. It's the last time I checked. He could announce something here really, really soon. He has until, the 25th. So it's going to be coming very, very soon. Morrison, you keep him close to home, and he's going to be that elite cover man for Liwanarumu and his defense. You have Mason Taylor. So in this tight end class, you can find a really good tight end on day 2. And that's why I kind of lean. Maybe you can go get that number 1 corner. And Jalen Jones and Samuel Warmack. You got Juju Brent stepping in next season as well, coming back. But I feel like they still are lacking that true number 1 corner. They've got some solid players, some good rotational players for injuries and stuff. Let's go get that number 1 piece. Mason Taylor on day 2, tight end. Going to be a really good addition. He's a tough nose guy, good blocker, and also really just a reliable receiver. Just seems to catch everything too. He had a couple of drops, I will say, but I think he is just as many targets as he gets, and what he's had to rely between Jaden Daniels and then this year for Garrett Nussmeier, just like, hey, where's Mason Taylor? True, he started as a true freshman as well. Jeffrey Besa from Oregon, linebacker. He's a good coverage player, has some serious upside as well. Nice athletic guy, and somebody that's going to be a developmental linebacker next to Jair Franklin. And I think they'll bring in a free agent, but I do think that they need to at least address that linebacking room and add some more youth into it. Jarquez Hunter, the running back from Auburn, he's going to give you some more electric burst into the room, and I think he's got some really good receiving skills and upside there to be untapped next to your star runner in JT, Jonathan Taylor. So I think it'd be a really good 1-2 punch. They just need some more depth, and I think Hunter certainly gives them another spark into that running back room. On to the Houston Texans, and I'm going with a guy that I'm so high on. I've been watching his film like nonstop lately, Donovan Azareye'h. Oh my goodness, he's undersized. I don't care. He plays tough too. Like, here's the thing. With Donovan Azareye'h, he just has that IQ where he has his head up, and he always seems to be understanding where the football is going, even on like RPOs and fake outs and different, play actions, fake outs, play action and, read options, stuff like that. He always seems to be able to locate the ball. I mean, not every single time, but I would say a lot of times he locates the football. He's got great location skills in the run game, and he can hold the point of attack within reason. It will be a bit of a limitation early on in his career, I'm sure. As a pass rusher, though, I haven't even begun to talk about the good stuff, because as a pass rusher, this guy may be one of the best pass rushers in college football. He is so twitched up. He has incredible ankle flexation. He's got a plethora of pass rush moves. You talk about that inside counter that you love from guys like Micah Parsons. He's got that. His spin move is one of the more dangerous ones in college football as well right now. He is a dynamic menace off the edge. I really like what he brings to the table as a pass rusher for the Falcons. Then we go on Isaiah Bond. Oh, I'm not done with explosiveness, man. This high draft, we're trying to get some explosive playmakers out here. Isaiah Bond, you pair him up with Drake London and Darnell Mooney as that number 3 pass catcher. He had a down season. However, I want to make sure we add in another weapon for Michael Penix Jr. and giving him all the tools he needs to succeed in this offense. They just really need to find that third wide receiver, so I'm going to do that here with Isaiah Bond. And then Jacob Parrish going to be that slot corner from Kansas State. He doesn't have tremendous size either, but he is somebody that really is a tough-nosed guy. He always sticks his nose into things when he can and looking to tackle guys and make plays. He's really solid in coverage as well, very feisty. So he makes up for it with that lack of length, which will be the reason why he falls to day 3 more than likely, but he's a really good football player. On to the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going with the big behemoth, Kenneth Grant. He is just so athletic for his size. It's incredible the way he moves. He has that upside that you look at when you talk about the elite interior defense alignment in the NFL. If he continues to develop, he has the potential to be a top 5 defensive tackle. Like, I think his upside is higher than Mason Graham, but Mason Graham has the floor, right? Mason Graham is a really polished prospect. I'm like, okay, Mason Graham's going to be a really solid defensive tackle. Grant has the upside where if he could just continues that hand development, those counters as a pass rusher, he could be the sexy Dexy, elite interior defense alignment or whatever, right? Haloti Nada type of player on the interior for the Cardinals. And I think that is a top need for them. Azareye'h Thomas at wide receiver, getting another playmaker on the outside with some speed to add into the room. Go back to Stanford, right? Why not? So I'm going to go add another element into there. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson have versatility to play inside out. So I'm not worried that Azareye'h Thomas is only going to be on the outside. I actually kind of like Azareye'h Thomas a big slot at times even too, because he can do that. I mean, maybe they'll go after more of a shiftier guy, and I did think about that. So something to consider. But with Xavier Restrepo going off the board, I'm like, all right, Alec Ayuman, a really good option at this point, so I'm going to take him. I can understand that pushback, though. And I definitely thought about that. Different things to think about. And then we go into Carson Schlesinger from UCLA, adding a nice linebacker into this room because their linebacking room, Kaiser White is a free agent. I expect him to be back, or if they let him go, then they'll sign somebody. You got Owen Popo still developing along as a situational linebacker. Mac Wilson's like a hybrid dude, plays a little bit of edge, plays a little bit of linebacker for them, and he's been a really good player. They could really use a good, solid coverage linebacker. Switzenser has that upside. He's got really good athleticism. He's another guy we'll see at the Senior Bowl. I'm really excited to see him. I think he could rise up into round 2 very, very easily as well. Because the traits, he's got the traits, and his tape this year was really good too. Antoine Powell-Ryland from Virginia Tech. I do want to add another pass rusher here. I'm going defensive line heavy if possible, or defensive heavy even. But Powell-Ryland, really good pass rusher. He's another guy that's a little undersized. I'm a little bit more worried about him in the run game early on, especially. However, as a pass rusher, this is another dude that has some really good ankle flexion and ability to get after the quarterback off the edge. He's a dynamic speed rusher. That's really what he brings to the table. And for Arizona, why not add another pass rusher, especially with the injuries that they had? They can always use some more depth there. On to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going offensive line with their first pick. I passed over Malachi Starks. Wanted to change it up a little bit too. But I do think Kelvin Banks is a really good pick for them and somebody that you stick in over at left guard, and he'll be a plug-and-play guy right there. Cordell Volgin can be a good swingman and whatnot for injuries. He's been reliable, I will say that, but they do need an upgrade. And also, you got to look at that right guard position, and Alex Kappa going into a contract year. They could even let him go, too, possibly, if they wanted to save some money. Ted Karras is going to be a free agent after this season. I'm not saying Banks plays center or anything like that, but they're going to have to look at addressing that offensive line. I think that that's something they're going to have to really, really stick their nose into this season. And then you go on to Nicky Manwari, safety in the second round, and he's going to be a really, really nice safety for them with his explosiveness and size. He can be a jack of all trades, man, too. Can play a little in the box for them. Depends on which defensive coordinator they get. I know they're interviewing somebody right now. It's the name on the tip of my tongue, but they are going to be getting a new defense coordinator. We'll see what they align with, what type of scheme they want to run. And then we get Barrett Carter, the linebacker from Clemson, uber athletic, and he's got the playmaking skills to play up at the line, and he certainly can go back in coverage too, one-on-one. I think his feel and zone still needs a little bit of work, and that's why I see him as more of a developmental guy, but those traits, I'm taking that no problem on day 2. I think he's going to be a great linebacker behind Logan Wilson, who he's given an extension, but I think with Jermaine Pratt going to last year of his contract, maybe they won't give him another extension so he can be that 1-2 punch with Logan Wilson. I think that'd be a good 1-2 as well. And then final pick for them, I'm going David Walker from Central Arkansas. He's another Senior Bowl guy to keep a close eye out on. I think he is going to really have the chance to make a ton of money there. If he can go up against some of those tackles and win consistently, you could be talking about him as a second rounder. But for right now, I'm being conservative, going day 3. I like his tape a lot. He just consistently wins with his power and overwhelming leverage ability versus some of these other, these small school guys. And like I said, we'll see what that translates into. He's got a good, solid pass rush moves, but I do think he is a little bit limited as an athlete and ankle flexion and stuff like that. I just think they need more pass rush, though, and he's certainly I think he's going to be productive in the NFL. So we get some more help there with Sam Hubbard going possibly to be a cap casualty this offseason. Or Miles Murphy just hasn't quite been able to develop just yet. So we're going to at least add some more help besides Trey Hendrickson into there. On to the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm going Tyler Booker in the first round. Oh, are you surprised? No, I got to go offensive line here. It's just the biggest need for them is they got to address this offensive line. They got to be able to run the ball. Like, they cannot go into the next season and not have a decent running game, or at least a mid-tier run game. They just didn't run the ball enough. They didn't run the ball effectively enough, and you got really good running backs. That's the sad part about this, too. So Booker's going to immediately add some force on that interior as a run blocker. And then Trey Amos was just BPA. And another way that I look at this is, too, you got to think about Tariq Woolen going into a contract year. There's some off-the-field stuff there, too. They've had some issues with Tariq Woolen, so maybe they aren't willing to give him an extension. Those are all situations behind the scenes. It's so hard to say from the outside looking in. He's a good cover man. He's had some missed tackles and big missed tackles throughout this season and at times. However, Trey Amos is going to give them some more depth. And Witherspoon, you can keep him in the slot in that case. Trey Brown's a free agent. Yeah, you got Nehemiah Pritchett. Maybe he can develop into a nice starter at some point. I feel like Trey Amos, though, was a really good addition at this point. And then Will Howard, nice little developmental quarterback, just coming off that natty win. Looked really, really sharp, man. Get it to Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate and Emeka Buga. You got some studs out there, of course, at receiver. He'll have some studs here at Seattle as well. But nice developmental quarterback, good arm talent, and certainly has some sneaky athleticism as well. Final pick, Jared Ivey. He can be that Draymond Jones type of replacement on their defense in my idea of this vision, I guess, of drafting him. Really strong at the point of attack, very, very strong with his hands, and somebody that can play inside and on the outside for the Seattle Seahawks. On to Tampa Bay. I'm going Siobhan Revel. I know this is what, ever since I've done the Tampa Bay rebuild, I love going after Siobhan Revel. And Todd Bowles' defense, that's a dream fit. And I think they need cornerback. They really do. They've had a lot of injuries over the years to the cornerback position. Jamel Dean, he is still under contract. He's a great cover man, but they could look at adding somebody in there. And Zion McCollum's also going to a contract year. He's going to be a free agent. So a lot of options on the table for this Bucs team. And I hate to just go after a pass rusher round one, even though it is still a really on the table need for them. I just maybe feel better about Siobhan Revel than Mikael Williams. I'll be real. I feel better about Revel at this point than who was on the board as a pass rusher. And I mean, you got Jalen Walker, could be an option too for them. I think that'd be an interesting pick. But Revel, really good prospect. I think he's a true first-round talent if it weren't for that ACL injury. And then we go get Kyle Kennard here, South Carolina edge rusher. Hey, I wanted to get another edge rusher. I really like Chris Braswell. The film that I recently watched on him, there is some recency bias, and I think that he's a really promising pass rusher. Of course, you got Yaya Diaby, who's a good player as well. I mean, he's really developed, and going to year number 3, he could take another jump. So you got those two guys, but we still need to add more help. Like, no doubt about it. They need to get a guy in free agency plus in the draft. Like, no matter what, they need to go at this in free agency and the draft to improve the pass rush. Tez Johnson, really nice slot option for them. Jalen McMillan's played well on the outside. You got Mike Evans, of course, Hall of Famer on the outside. If they lose Chris Godwin, well, you need to try to add some more help into the room. I think Tez Johnson could be a really, really nice addition for them. And then Nick Martin, linebacker from Oklahoma State. He's a tough-nosed guy. He's just somebody that makes tackles consistently. He's always finding his way around the ball. He's got a knack to his feel for where the play is going. He does get fooled at times on misdirection, but man, he just doesn't give up on plays. He's always trying his best. His motor is running the hottest as the linebacker position in this entire draft. And I love that at linebackers. You got to have the grit. You got to have the heart at the linebacker position. And he's a solid athlete too. He's just not the biggest guy. To the Denver Broncos, and we're going to add a weapon for Bo Nix. Now, in this mock draft, we'll basically say that they got a tight end in free agency like Jawan Johnson. I think that's a very realistic possibility. Sean Payton, that experience. And there's a multitude of options. They could get a wide receiver in free agency. Maybe they feel good about their youth with Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims and also Devon Bailey. But I think that Luther Burden would add a top-tier weapon into this room with Cortland Sutton and those young guys. Burden gives them that yak monster. And Payton loves to do those screens as well. He loves to find these athletes that can make plays with the ball in their hands. I just feel like Burden's a great, great add and a great scheme fit for what I think Sean Payton can get out of him. So that's the way I'm going. And he's best player available too. Travion Henderson, we're going to the circus here. We're shooting ourselves out of a cannon, as Pat McAfee will say, shot out of a cannon. With that electric burst, they need a home run hitter. They haven't had a big run that I've seen really all season. Henderson can bring that day one. Lana Jackson, Arkansas, defensive lineman, edge rusher, interior player. Gives them some more depth on that defensive line, which is something they really need. The way that I would see Lana Jackson is kind of like as a John Franklin Myers understudy for a season in the developmental there, because Franklin Myers going into a contract year, he's a little expensive, so I think that they could try to find somebody to develop there. They also are going to need a nose tackle, but Malcolm Roach is there, and you can sign somebody on the cheap and then maybe draft somebody late, so that's an option too, just depending. And I feel like Lana Jackson was best player available at that point for the defensive line. And then final pick, Malachi Moore. Get another safety, right? I mean, Brandon Jones, a big hit in that secondary, but they do need somebody else. They need a number 2 guy. PJ Locke, I think, is more of a backup. And I'd say he's a bad football player, and I think he's a good special teamer, all those things. I just would like to add another guy into there, at least to add some competition, and Malachi Moore can do that. I think he's got great versatility as well, can play in the slot for them. I like him as a deep safety and what he brings there as a cover guy. And I think his instincts were really showing off at Alabama this season, playing more in a traditional safety role. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm going Malachi Starks, who fell at this point. We'll see where he ends up going. I know he's a really good football player, the athletic traits. I did feel like he had a bit of a down season, and I'm maybe not as high on Malachi Starks as others. Some people have him as a top 5 player in this class. He's a very good football player, and he's going to be an ever-versatile changing piece for a defense. And for Pittsburgh, they probably saying, hey, look, we've seen enough, in Baltimore over there with Kyle Hamilton. Let's go get our versatile piece here in the secondary. He could play in the slot too. Beanie Bishop, could play that dime backer role. I think that he just would help out their secondary right away, even with Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick back there. And Elliott's going to a contract year. Heck, Minkah Fitzpatrick's had a bit of a down year. I thought Elliott was better this season. So if they wanted to move off of Fitzpatrick next season, if he has another down year, they could do that to save some money. Overall, though, Stark's going to get out on the football field. He'll definitely play. And then we got Trey Harris here at the wide receiver position. Going to give them another target on the outside, Trey Harris. So if they, Mike Williams, if they bring him back on the cheap, they're going to still need to add somebody on the outside. George Pickens going into a contract year. Roman Wilson has inside-out versatility, but Harris certainly gives him another big target on the outside for whoever is quarterbacking for this team. And you know what? Cam Skattebo, oh my gosh. Yeah, you give me Cam. Let's go. Come on. He's a Pittsburgh Steeler through and through. He's got that mentality you look for. Cam Skattebo, put him in there, quarterback, even if you have to. I don't care. You know what I mean? He's going to be a freight train. Bring that Pittsburgh Steeler vibe with Cam Skattebo. I can just see him right now in the black and gold. And then you go on to Curtis Rourke from Indiana. Hoosiers, let's go. I'm a Hoosier, and I think that Curtis Rourke, really, really solid quarterback. And I'd take him on day 3, and you never know, man. He doesn't have an elite arm or anything like that, but man, he can make enough of the throws. He was also playing with like a torn ACL or something like that? Like, I don't not even know. So it's like he was probably not even getting all the power into some of those throws, which maybe limits some of those deep plays this season. And I still saw him make some good deep plays for Indiana. There was more quick passing game and whatnot. Like they did a good job with the design there and coaching wise. But Rourke, really accurate player and knows how to, get the ball out of his hands. He's going to be a really, really nice add for them as that developmental quarterback. On to the LA Chargers here, starting off Tyler Warren. And I get it. Colston Loveland, the Wolverine, would make a lot of sense too with the Harbaugh connection. I couldn't pass up on Tyler Warren. I like Warren a lot, man. So that's just kind of the way it worked out here. And Warren having such a good season, I just can't pass up on him. Even though Loveland had to deal with that offense, sometimes couldn't even get over 100 passing yards. Derek Harmon in the second round. Oh, sign me up all day. They need some more help on that interior. Bring back Poona Ford, hopefully. You got Morgan Fox they're going to have to make a decision on. So they're going to need to add some more help for sure. And I think that Harmon would give them that. And then we got Hosea Stewart. Okay, here's the Wolverine. Got to add at least one Wolverine in here. So we did it. We get some more pass rush depth. They're going to need to add at least a pass rusher early on in this draft / free agency. Khalil Mack's a free agent. You got Tui Tuipulotu who can step up into that role. Joey Bosa is still under contract. He's getting older, though, now, taking a bit of a step back. So they're going to have to add at least some depth in this draft. And then you got Jake Majors, a major center for them. They need an upgrade there at that center position. On that interior in general, they need an upgrade. Hopefully Jake Majors can be that long-term center for them. And he's been a really reliable center for Texas, and I think it's going to be a tough loss, too, for Arch Manning going into next season. To the Green Bay Packers, I know, receiver in the first round. This is so unrealistic, G-Sling. I'm clicking off the video right now. Okay, I don't blame you. But Gutekunst, we'll see what he ends up doing. However, with Christian Watson's injury, you never know, right? It could be a sneaky first-round need, especially if Emeka Egbuka's on the board. I think it would be a really, really nice add. You pair him up with Jalen Reed and Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs, right? They like to rotate their receivers as well. So, you got Heath, and you got Milton, you got some guys, you got some depth, but I still think, a lot of those guys, too, are free agents in 2026. So they might want to diversify a little bit, make sure that they've got somebody else under contract they feel really good about. Get another weapon, because it did show up there at the end of the season when it mattered. Then we got Maxwell Harrison, the cornerback from Kentucky, a really, really good football player with a lot of upside there, really good athletic traits. Do think he needs to get stronger. He's not your press guy at the moment, which you might say, well, in Hafley's scheme, you want to make sure you have somebody like that. I think he's got the potential. He's got the arm length to do it, and I love his coverage traits and his ability there. He's just going to need a little bit of time developing and getting stronger, I feel like. But it'll be a nice addition, at least give you some competition with Carrington Valentine on the outside for that number 2 cornerback spot. Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, really athletic guy. Needs to work on his hands a little bit. Get a little stronger, of course, but I do like him, and I think he'll be a really nice add, especially if you lose Josh Myers, and you probably would end up bringing somebody in free agency. However, I think Jared Wilson would be a really good understudy there. And then C.J. West, maybe Adam West 2.0, C.J. West, but from Indiana, another Hoosier. He's their nose tackle, and he's a stout nose tackle, I'll tell you that right now. And that's what the Green Bay needs. They need a stout nose tackle on that interior next to Clark and, Kenny Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks, you name it, right? Like, I think they add a really nice interior nose tag. I think that would be a really good addition for the skull, blow the horns, oh. And we got Jahdae Barron, Texas cornerback, Hook'em Horns. Let's go get ourselves some secondary help. He actually, has a little Byron Murphy to his game. He's a playmaker. I'll tell you that right now. Murphy's been a big playmaker for them this season. Well, if they end up losing him to a contract somewhere else, you get Jahdae Barron, who will definitely be a nice fill-in for them. Even if they bring back Murphy, they're going to need more cornerback help. Stephon Gilmore's a free agent. So a lot of things on the table for them to upgrade that secondary. And then with their other pick, we go Shamar Turner, interior defense line. I like running back too for them. I thought that was an interesting value as well. But Shamar Turner, they need some help on that interior. I mean, they're thin. They just are. And you need to pair up somebody with Harrison Phillips. I think it'd be that nice compliment. He's got a lot of pass rush upside. He just really wasn't used a whole ton as a pass rusher for Texas A&M. You know how the way they use their defensive linemen's wild. For the Houston Texans here, I'm going Tyleik Williams, interior defense lineman, The Ohio State University. He is one of the better interior defense lineman prospects to go in as a day one starter. I see him as a plug-and-play guy for Houston. He knows how to use his hands. He's super strong. He'll bull rush you and knock you back. He is underrated too as a pass rusher, what he brings to the table. Really, really like him. And then you got Jonas Savaiinaea, really powerful offensive guard, going to add some more oomph in that run game, which was a problem for them throughout the season. And protecting C.J. Stroud too at times was a problem. So Savaiinaea, move him inside the guard, and he'll at least be maybe that long-term right guard for Shaq Mason. And then you got Savion Williams, TCU wide receiver, big, athletic freak. That's to say the least. But yet another big weapon in here for C.J. Stroud. Tank Dell with the injuries, I feel like let's go and add another playmaker. We do add a running back in here too, Trevor Etienne. So we're adding a lot of playmakers and help for CJ on the offense. Trevor Etienne's going to be a nice running back to go along with Joe Mixon. I mean, Dameon Pierce had a really solid season this year. Special teams too, he was really good there. But Etienne gives you some more depth, and for just in case you have injuries, you never know. I mean, Mixon's been reliable and whatnot, but I do think I need to add another running back into the fold, at least on a day 3 pick, and I think that makes a lot of sense with Etienne with his vision and solid athleticism and what he brings to the table. Los Angeles Rams, Jihad Campbell. I love this pick for them, and especially after watching the playoff game and just throughout the season, watching their games. They need a guy in the middle. They need somebody that can cover. They need a guy that can stop the run more consistently. They got taken advantage of so many times by teams that would exploit their linebacking room. So they need to add a stud there in the middle. I think Jihad Campbell can be that. And so you can also rush the passer a little bit if they want. You got Marcus Bowe from Purdue, the tackle, and he can be a really good developmental right tackle, get stronger, continue to find his technique. Like he's just got to get stronger. Like that's what it is at that right tackle position if he wants to hold up there. Some people will say put him at center, and it could be an option too for them, but I think they're good on the interior, so they don't need to do that. He'd be more of a right tackle for Rob Havenstein. Jack Besh, TCU wide receiver. Does he give you a little bit of Puka Nacua vibes? Well, here you go. Let's go and add another, especially with Cooper Kupp and possibly them moving on from him. Maybe he re-signs on a cheap 1-year deal or something like that. That could be possible too. But they're going to need a little more receiver depth. And also, Atwell is a free agent too. Demarcus Robinson is a free agent. So they're going to add some more wide receiver depth. Jack Besh, a really solid target. And then Tommy Hill, Nebraska cornerback. He's got some upside. He's got really good athletic traits. He's more of a linear guy. However, he's got to bring some more size into the room, especially if they end up losing to Killer Witherspoon. Maybe you bring somebody in there to help fill that void, give you, like I said, more of that size on the outside on the perimeter, which they're still looking for. You got Kobe Durant and Dorius Williams, but definitely could still use some more help in that secondary. On to the Baltimore Ravens here. I'm going Mikael Williams, the edge rusher. And he could play defensive end, play 5-tech, give you a little bit of Broderick Washington. I mean, he's a totally different player and whatnot. But he definitely can play on those NASCAR packages and on the inside, like he did it at Georgia. You even saw him line up at nose occasionally, which is wild. Anyway, Mikael Williams gives you some versatility. I feel like at this point, the value makes sense to go after with him with his upside. Ariante Ursary, I'd stick him in a guard, especially for the Baltimore Ravens team. Limit some of my concerns with his foot speed. Now, if they lose Ronnie Stanley, then you stick him over at left tackle, and that's another thing, of course, that uncertainty there. So I feel like, hey, at least he fits 2 positions at once until I know more with free agency. Ty Felton, really good route runner here. Get another wide receiver into the room. Zay Flowers, with obviously his dynamicism that who brings. Rashad Bateman's really stepped up this season with that size that he brings to the table as well. But I think Felton could be a nice little route runner into the wide receiving room with Nelson Aguilar being a free agent. So we had another playmaker for Lamar Jackson. And then Sebastian Castro, safety. He is more of a slot guy at Iowa. He would be a little bit of a developmental project as a full-time safety. but that would be something I feel like he can do. I like Castro. I love his instincts that he plays with, and he's a solid tackler as well. And he comes in there next to Ardarius Washington and figure with Marcus Williams probably on the way out. You got Kyle Hamilton, of course, but it allows Kyle Hamilton to continue to play a multitude of roles as well. And then final pick, Thomas Fidone. I just saw he came out. I actually was looking at this. I did not think he was coming out into this draft. I was just looking at the PFF simulator when I was doing this. I'm like, wait, why is Thomas Fidone on their simulator? I thought he's coming back to Nebraska. I look it up and I'm like, he's going out into the draft. So I'm like, oh, I'm putting him in this mock draft. I like Fidone a lot. This guy gives me like some Zach Ertz vibes. I don't know what it is. There's like some Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert-ish type of traits. I don't know, both Eagles guys. But anyway, I really like Fidone, especially with Mark Andrews going into a contract year. I know he had a rough playoff game, the playoff drop, the fumble he had too in that game. He's still a good football player. I do think they're going to add another tight end, though, who can be more of an inline guy. Fidone can be that. He's got the traits to do that, take over that for that Mark Andrews role, maybe after 2025. He is a little bit more of a developmental guy. I really do like him, though, and his upside he brings with Isaiah Likely into there. And then on to the Detroit Lions here. Unfortunately, it was a rough end of the season, but it was a great season and a fun season to watch. With their first pick, I'm going Wyatt Millam, the offensive tackle. I think he moves inside to guard at the next level, and that's fine. Like I think that they could use an interior player, especially with Zeiler being a free agent. Graham Glasgow's getting a little bit older now, and he might be more of a backup at this point. Somebody who's a great swing guard center for this team. He did struggle at the end of the season, at least in my eyes, and that's something I'd like to at least address and add there. So Wyatt Millam, keep his strength to strength. Wyatt Millam's a really good footballer. He's so strong, man, that grappling hooks that he has. Second round, JT Tuimoloau from The Ohio State University. I know, the Ohio State rivalry, him and Aiden Hutchinson. Cody Simon, I drafted him from Ohio State too later in this draft. We'll talk about him in a minute. But JT Tuimoloau, he is just a solid player, just like Jack Sawyer. One of those guys, really solid football players. They don't have the athletic traits that some of these other edge rushers have. But on day two, you're getting a really good football player, and he's going to come in right away. He's going to make some plays as a coverage guy. I'll tell you that right now. He's going to make some swats, and some interceptions. And he's got a plethora of pass rush moves. Knows how to get after the quarterback. He's strong and good at the point of attack. Just, again, the athletic traits are the big limiting factor with him. He's not going to be probably a 10-sack guy, at least every season. And you got Nick Nash, San Jose State. Like this guy a ton. And for the Detroit Lions, they could use another size receiver. Remember, they let go Josh Reynolds last season. And then, this season, you got Tim Patrick, who there was a big ad for them, actually. And Patrick's looked really good. I definitely recommend trying to bring him back on the cheap. Keep him around. But Nick Nash can be a really, really nice developmental player. And this is also a comp pick. I need to mention this. This is not official, so I don't have an official pick for this just yet. But I think it's pretty much going to be official. I think Aaron Glenn's going to get a head coaching job, which means you will get a third-round comp pick this season and next season. So that's the only good thing about losing Aaron Glenn, as tough as that's going to be. So Nick Nash, though, will help fill that void as a big wide receiver on the outside. Cody Simon, he's an underrated player. He's had a really good season. Every time I turn on Buckeyes film, it's like, oh, Cody Simon, man, he's popping off. Dude's athletic. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I didn't realize how athletic he is. He's got some burst, man, and he's a good blitzer. He's a really good run defender. He can make plays in coverage, too. He's going to be a really, really solid, Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be going into a contract year, and then also Alexander Zellini going to be going to a contract year. So if you're trying to find that 1-2 punch with Jack Campbell, maybe Cody Simon can be that guy. For the Washington Commanders here, Jalen Walker, BPA at this point. I know I'm a little lower on Jalen Walker. I do think he's a little bit more of just an athlete, and I do have some question marks taking Jalen Walker top 10, top 15, where you're currently seeing him mocked right now. Good football player. I really like what he brings to the table. Super disruptive. He is going to be very scheme dependent. I want to put him in a spot that I feel like a coaching staff will be able to use his traits and his tools to the best of his ability. I think that Dan Quinn will understand how to use a guy like Jalen Walker. So he's not going to probably go this low in the draft. I know PFF did lower him on the simulator. I don't know, the explanation on that, what exactly is going on there. I have him more as a back end of the first round, second round type of guy at the moment. I want to see him put on more play strength as a pass rusher going up against tackles. I didn't really see him win with a lot of power first tackles. I saw him win on a lot of blitzes in the A gap. I saw him win on a lot of spy blitzes, free rushes, stuff like that, or just winning to the edge with speed. And he's going to win to the edge with speed. I don't disagree, you know what I mean? But he does need to add some more play strength and some more pass rush moves to be able to win more consistently at the next level. A lot of tools, a lot of traits to deal with, and they need more passers, clearly. I want to add a big target for Jaden Daniels on the outside with Jaden Higgins. Okay, the Jaden's out here getting all tongue-tied. It's getting me going. I can't even say that word. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and add another big play target. Good, solid catch radius, athleticism too. I don't think he's the most explosive guy, but I think he's a smooth mover, especially for his size, almost 6'4". So going to get another big play threat there for them that they maybe just don't have right now. Chris Paul Jr., linebacker from Ole Miss. Very, very smooth linebacker. Good coverage player. And I think that he'll be a nice understudy if they bring back Bobby Wagner maybe one more season. You got Frankie Louvu, who goes hybrid edge and linebacker. They do need some more depth, though, in that linebacking room. And I think Chris Paul could be a really good add in that third-round pick. Buffalo Bills here. I'm going Xavier Watts in the first round. I'm comfortable. I like Xavier Watts a ton. Very good football player. And I know that Notre Dame did lose, but Xavier Watts really wouldn't get tested all the time. The corners and the man coverage that they were playing, they need to adjust on some of that. But anyway, yeah, without Benjamin Morrison, too, it's tough. You're playing a lot of freshmen out there in that Notre Dame secondary. Watts is a really good playmaker, though, in the back end, and he's reliable. He can cover tight ends, running backs, so he has all that ability to come down in the box and make plays, cover over the top. Maybe he doesn't have elite range, but for Buffalo, man, they need another playmaker in that back end desperately. On to their second-round pick, the captain, Jack Sawyer. What can you say about Jack Sawyer? He's going to bring the heart. He's going to bring the desire to that edge rushing room. I mean, they've already got a lot of that. Their pass rushing room is good, but AJ Epenesa going to a contract year. Jack Sawyer is certainly going to be able to deliver as a nice, solid pass rusher, a number 2 guy with Gregory Rousseau. Von Miller, we'll see if he's still there, but you got Javon Sullivan as a nice situational DPR. You got Gray Zabel, offensive tackle there at North Dakota State. Maybe you move him inside to guard. Look, David Edwards had a fantastic season. He is under contract. And you on the other side at right guard, you got Osiris Torrance. He's had a really solid season as well. He's opened up some big lanes in the run game. They've got their guards. But just in case, look, Zabel gives you that developmental guy for Edwards. If after this next season he earns a big contract, he can be a really good developmental piece at that left guard position. He has versatility across that offensive line too. So I think that would be a really, really nice add for them. Just continue to build that offensive line depth. I mean, Alex Anderson's been able to be a nice depth piece too for them. But it's always important to have depth. They've been pretty solid with injuries this season. However, if injuries do arise, you need to make sure you're ready to go. And for the future, this is kind of a nice pick, I feel like. We're going to add another speedster into this offense. Torrey Horton. Gotten injured, just kind of haven't been able to see a whole ton of him this season. So that's going to lower his draft stock. But he's still super talented, man. He's got some vertical speed. I'll tell you that right now. And get the ball in his hands. At Colorado State, they just put him on a lot of drags and say, hey, you go make plays after the catch. And he can do that. But I do think he could be another nice addition with some speed for them in their offense. And then Dorian Strong, Virginia Tech cornerback. He's a strong corner. Like, he's another one of these guys that he at Virginia Tech, he played a lot of bump and run coverage, and he was very, very smooth. And he didn't allow much separation. I know a lot of the attention was on Mansour Delane, super athletic guy over there, but Strong may not be as athletic, but I thought he was a better cover man, actually. And on day 3, he can certainly add. In this case scenario, too, you would imagine that they go out in free agency and fill that void if Virgil Douglas walks, or if they bring him back, then that would be an option, too. But they're going to need to add another cornerback in free agency, and then you get Strong, maybe you can develop. Philadelphia Eagles here, and I'm going Harold Fanning Jr. Let's go, man. I love Harold Fanning Jr. Oh, my gosh, this guy is unbelievable. I do think he's worth a first-round pick. He is... Now, look, he is not the most athletic guy, but at the tight end position, you don't need to be a freak athlete. Look, we're seeing these... Brock Bowers is a freak athlete, okay? And he's the one exception, but he is a good tight end, right? Kyle Pitts, a freak athlete. He just doesn't really know how to play tight end, at least at this moment. Maybe he'll develop at some point. Harold Fanning Jr., he can play tight end. He's actually a tough-nosed blocker, and he is a savvy route runner. He's a shifty, short area burst guy as well. Like, he can make that little shift cut to be able to kind of yak ability his way through defenders, and he's tough to tackle as well. He's got that bowling ball build, kind of like that Antonio Gates style of build that he brings to the table. And sure hands, man. Oh my gosh, does he have some sure hands? You know what I mean? So you pair him up with Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, you're having so he could be a big slot for them. So you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what he can be early on for this team in the long haul as he continues to develop. I think he could be a true number 1 tight end in the league. Prince Umamielen, another pass rusher for this team. If you lose Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, you're going to need to add some replacements. They'll probably add somebody in free agency, but Prince Umamielen, he's been a really dynamic pass rusher. He certainly can drop back into coverage if need be. He has all the range to do that. He's not an elite athlete, but he's a solid athlete. and he can get to the pass rusher. He needs to get stronger at the point of attack. I will say that's going to be something he needs to work on at the next level. Ozzy Tripolio from Boston College, the right tackle there. And Tripolio is a nice developmental tackle with some size. I don't think he has crazy foot speed or anything like that. But really what I see with Tripolio is a really good swing tackle for them. He may not be the long-term right tackle, but they need a swing tackle. And I think Tripolio is going to be a really good swing tackle, whether he has to fill in for Mata or Lane Johnson. When they lose one of those guys, like that offensive line takes a big dip. So having a really good swing tackle is important. So yes, he may not be the long-term answer for Lane Johnson, you might say. Who knows, right? But I think he's a really, really solid offensive lineman with a high floor. And then final pick here for the Eagles, Ty Hamilton, the Ohio State Buckeye. Really, really nice point of attack, one tech for them. He holds his lanes, man. He's a really good run defender. Not the most dynamic pass rusher, but he actually has a little bit more upside, I feel like, than what he's showing right now. He's got an explosive burst off the line. So he's somebody that you can develop in that regard, but he's going to be a really nice addition, especially if they end up losing some guys like Milton Williams. You got Moro Ojimo. I like him. He can fill into that role. But I think Hamilton gives you another player on that interior that can be a strong dude. I mean, he's not like Jordan Davis level or anything like that as size, but he brings that run stopping ability on early downs for them. They've got a lot of good pass rushers on that interior, and they can stop the run as well. But I think Hamilton can give you some more rotation. Finishing up this mock draft with the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going Walter Nolan in the first round for their pick at 32. He's had a really good season, and he's just gotten so much better. I mean, he was an athlete going into the season. Now he's a football player. Let's just be real. Like, he has taken that next step. He's really filled the role and looked very, very dynamic as a pass rusher. He's been solid as a run defender. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been looking for that number 2 for Chris Jones for quite the minute. I think they could find him here with Walter Nolan. And then with their second round pick, I'm going Caleb Johnson, the Iowa running back. He's going to be a great between the tackles runner. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco's a great between the tackles runner, but I also think that Johnson is going to be a solid receiving back as well for this offense. And it just gives you that depth. Carson Steele ideally is more of like a number 3 running back. They need more depth at the running back position. I think Johnson's going to definitely do that. Gunnar Helm, tight end. I love Noah Gray. Huge Noah Gray guy. Now they use 2 tight ends. So I think that Gunnar Helm's going, no matter what, like he'll be able to develop for a season behind Travis Kelce if they bring him back. If Kelce wants to keep playing for another season or whatever, maybe he retires after this season. Who knows? That's why I've been holding off from tight end, drafting a tight end for them. If he ends up retiring this season, well, then I could see something like this. And Noah Gray ends up stepping into the number 1 tight end role next season. And Gunnar Helm could be that number 2 tight end. But I think he'll be a nice add with his athleticism and target share he was able to accomplish this season for the Texas Hook'em Horns. Zy Alexander, going to give him some more depth on the outside. Jalen Watson going to be going to a contract year in 2026. Joshua Williams, another guy, also going to be going to a contract year, I believe, in 2026. Don't quote me on that one. I'm planking on the top of my head on that one. Anyway, they need some more depth on the outside. And Zy Alexander gives us more size there, almost 6'1", 190, can play press man, play at the line of scrimmage, and definitely has all the chops to do that. And then Baron Sorrell, Texas edge rusher. I feel like this guy's an underrated dude. I want to see how he tests out of the combine, but I think he's a really good football player. I'd take him over some of these other edge rushers even that are being mocked higher. I'll be real. I like Baron Sorrell a lot. I think he could be a late round gem, whoever ends up getting him. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, they could use some more edge depth, right? I mean, they've got some guys, of course. Carl Loftus has played really, really well. Mike Dana is a solid player. You got Felix Uzomah. I've actually seen more of him recently. Like, he's definitely stepped up his game. So that's going to do it here for this 2025 4-round mock draft. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. As always, I love it, man. I love hearing your opinions. I'm sorry I've been a little slow on comments and stuff. Just been really trying to work hard and get as many videos as I can pumped out and just focus on the quality as much as I can too, and doing a lot of film study, stuff like that. So I do apologize. I love you guys. I love talking to you guys. I missed that. I want to get more to it, and I'll definitely be trying to do it. I'm just going to be doing the best I can for sure. And anyway, I hope you guys have a really good day, and I'll talk to you soon.